Welcome to Poirot's Mysteries, exploring the brilliance of Hercule Poirot's detective work.
In the fog-shrouded halls of Blackthorn Hall, a scream pierces the night. Lady Beatrice Ashby lies dead, poisoned in her own library. Was it greed, betrayal, or a hidden secret that sealed her fate? Enter Hercule Poirot, the brilliant Belgian detective whose little gray cells unravel a web of lies, cryptic earrings, and a missing ledger. Who among the elegant guests? Her grieving husband, her restless nephew, the stoic doctor, the gruff major, or the timid companion holds the key to her murder? With every clue a twist, and every suspect a motive. Can you guess the killer before Poirot's shocking reveal? Dive into this chilling Agatha Christie-style mystery where no one is what they seem, and the truth waits in the shadows. Chapter 1. The Shadow over Ashwood Grange. The late September sun cast a golden haze over the sprawling lawns of Ashwood Grange, a Jacobean manor nestled in the heart of the Devon countryside. Its ivy-clad walls and mullioned windows gleamed with an air of timeless dignity. Yet beneath the serene facade, a quiet unease stirred. The house, home to the wealthy and reclusive Marlowe family, had not opened its doors to guests in nearly a decade. Tonight, however, was an exception. A small, carefully chosen gathering had been invited to celebrate the engagement of Miss Eleanor Marlowe, the youngest of the family, to Mr. Julian Haverford, a man whose charm was as undeniable as his origins were obscure. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever the loyal chronicler of Hercule Poirot's exploits, stood on the gravel drive, adjusting his tie with a faint grimace. The invitation to Ashwood Grange had come unexpectedly, delivered to his London flat with a note from Eleanor herself, a distant acquaintance from his younger days. A celebration, the note had promised, and a chance to meet old friends. Yet as Hastings surveyed the looming manor, its shadowed gables cutting sharp silhouettes against the fading light, he could not shake a sense of foreboding. The air was heavy, as if propriety. Beside them stood Dr. Clara Vernon, the family physician, a sharp-eyed woman whose quiet demeanor belied her keen observation of the room. The local vicar, Mr. Timothy Gale, hovered nearby, his nervous laughter punctuating the conversation. Rounding out the circle was Mrs. Lavinia Cresswell, a widowed cousin of Lady Beatrice, whose penchant for gossip was matched only by her fondness for her pearl-handled fan. Hastings, nursing a glass of sherry, found himself drawn into conversation with Mr. Gale. "A splendid occasion, Captain," the vicar said, his voice tremulous, "though I confess I find large gatherings rather overwhelming." "Indeed," Hastings replied, his eyes scanning the room. "There's a certain tension in the air, wouldn't you say? As though everyone is playing a part." The vicar's smile faltered. "Oh, surely not. The Marlowes are a fine family, though—" He hesitated, glancing toward Richard, who had now turned away, his jaw tight. "Well, families have their complexities, do they not?" Before Hastings could press further, a sharp cry cut through the murmur of conversation. All eyes turned to the grand staircase where Eleanor stood, her face pale, clutching a crumpled piece of paper. It's monstrous," she gasped, her voice trembling. Julian rushed to her side, but she recoiled, her eyes wide with something akin to fear. "Eleanor, darling, what is it?" Lady Beatrice demanded, hurrying forward. Eleanor's hand shook as she held out the note. This was slipped under my door. It says Julian is not what he seems, that he's a fraud, a danger. A ripple of gasps spread through the room. Julian's face darkened, though his voice remained calm. Nonsense, my dear. Someone's idea of a cruel joke. Sir Reginald stepped forward, his voice like steel. Give me that note. He scanned it briefly, his lips thinning. This is intolerable. Whoever wrote this will answer for it. The atmosphere in the great hall shifted, the earlier warmth replaced by a chill of suspicion. Hastings, his curiosity piqued, noted the react was about to ascend the staircase when a low, deliberate voice stopped him. Captain Hastings, is it not? He turned to find Dr. Clara Vernon standing in the doorway, her eyes sharp in the dim light. You've a keen eye, Captain. I saw you watching tonight. What did you make of that note? Hastings hesitated. A prank, perhaps, or something more malicious. It's hard to say without knowing the players. Dr. Vernon's lips curved faintly. Oh, the players are always the key, aren't they? Be careful, Captain. Ashwood Grange has a way of keeping its secrets. With that, she turned and vanished into the shadows of the corridor. Hastings stood alone, the great hall now silent save for the faint ticking of a grandfather clock. He glanced at his watch. 10:37 p.m. The night was still young, but the air was thick with the promise of something darker to come. As he climbed the stairs to his room, Hastings could not shake the feeling that the note was merely the first thread in a far more tangled web. Little did he know that, within hours, Ashwood Grange would become the stage for a crime that would summon the singular talents of his old friend, Hercule Poirot. Chapter 2. The Shadow Falls. The dining room at Blackthorn Hall gleamed with the quiet elegance of old wealth. Crystal chandeliers cast a soft glow over a long mahogany table, where silverware glinted and fine china bore the Ashby crest. The guests, now dressed in formal attire, took their places under the watchful eye of the butler, whose silent efficiency seemed almost mechanical. Captain Hastings, seated to the right of Hercule Poirot, noted the strained politeness that hung over the table like a fog. The clink of cutlery and the murmur of small talk did little to mask the undercurrent of tension. Sir Reginald, at the head of the table, raised a glass of claret. "To our guests, Mr. Poirot and Captain Hastings," he said, his voice hearty but his smile tight. "May your stay at Blackthorn Hall be memorable." The toast was met with polite murmurs, though Hastings caught a fleeting glance between Lady Beatrice and her, fluttering nervously as she glanced toward Lady Beatrice. It was just past 9 o'clock when the evening took its fatal turn. The dessert course, poached pears and a delicate wine sauce, had just been served when a piercing scream tore through the house. The sound, raw and anguished, came from the direction of the library. Every head snapped toward the door, and for a moment, silence gripped the room. Sir Reginald was the first to move, his chair scraping back as he stood. "What the devil?" he began, but Poirot was already on his feet, his small frame radiating authority. "Monsieur, mesdames, remain calm," Poirot said, his voice steady. "Captain Hastings with me. We must investigate." Hastings followed Poirot into the dimly lit corridor, the others trailing behind, despite Poirot's instruction. The library door stood ajar, and a faint glow spilled onto the polished floor. Inside, the scene was one of chaos frozen in time. Lady Beatrice lay crumpled on the Persian rug, her face pale as alabaster, her eyes wide and unseeing. A crystal tumbler lay shattered beside her, its contents staining the rug with a dark, spreading pool. The air carried the sharp, bitter scent of almonds. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, kneeling beside the body. His gloved fingers hovered over her wrist, checking for a pulse, though the stillness of her form told him what he needed to know. "She is dead. Poison, I suspect. Cyanide from the smell." Hastings felt a chill run through him. Poison? But we were all at dinner. How could... Poirot held up a hand, silencing him. His eyes swept the room, taking in the overturned chair, the open window letting in the night air, and the half-empty decanter of brandy on the side table. "Regardez, Hastings. The tumbler. She drank from it alone. And the window. It is open, yet the evening is cold. Curious, no?" By now the others had crowded into the doorway. Sir Reginald's face was ashen, his voice hoarse. "Beatrice. My God, what's happened to her?" That was perhaps 20 minutes ago, just before 9. "And no one followed her?" Poirot's gaze was piercing, moving from face to face. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the distant howl of the wind outside. Julian Carver cleared his throat. I saw her leave the dining room, but I stayed at the table. We all did." "Did you?" Poirot's tone was mild, but his eyes gleamed with intent. "We shall see. For now this room must be sealed. No one is to touch anything until the police arrive. Hastings, please ensure the window is closed but not locked. It may yet tell us something." As Hastings moved to comply, he noticed a small detail, a single pearl earring, half hidden beneath the edge of the rug. He pointed it out to Poirot, who nodded approvingly, but said nothing, his mind clearly racing. The butler, who had been hovering silently, spoke at last. "Shall I telephone for the police, sir?" "Yes," Poirot replied. "And quickly. But tell me, monsieur, who poured the brandy in that decanter and when?" The butler hesitated, his pale face unreadable. "I filled it this afternoon, sir, as is my custom. No one has touched it since, to my knowledge." "Bon," Poirot said softly. "We shall verify that, too." As the group dispersed, some to mourn, others to whisper in corners, Hastings leaned close to Poirot. "This is grim, Poirot. Poison, in a house full of people. Any one of them could have done it." Poirot's mustache twitched. "Oui, mon ami, but not any one. The murderer is among us, and already the little gray cells begin to see the shape of their crime. This is no random act. It is precise, calculated, and deeply personal." The clock in the hall struck 10, its chimes a somber knell for the tragedy that had descended upon Blackthorn Hall. Hastings felt the weight of the night pressing in, knowing that the answers lay hidden in the shadows of this elegant, deadly house. Chapter 3. The Belgian detective takes the stage. The library catalogued in his mind. He paused by the decanter of brandy, its amber contents glinting in the lamplight. "Mon ami," Poirot said, turning to Hastings. "Observe the decanter. It is half empty, yet the butler claims he filled it this afternoon. And the glass, broken, yes, but the shards are scattered in a manner most precise. Tell me, Hastings, what do you deduce?" Hastings frowned, rubbing his chin. "Well, the glass broke when she dropped it, I suppose. As for the decanter, perhaps someone else had a drink earlier? Or could the poison have been in the brandy itself? Poirot's mustache twitched with a faint smile. You are not wrong to consider the brandy, but you leap too quickly. The poison. It is likely cyanide, as Dr. Marwood confirmed. But how was it administered? In the glass alone, or the decanter? And why the open window on so chill an evening? These are questions that require the little gray cells, not mere supposition. Before Hastings could respond, Sir Reginald appeared at the doorway, his face drawn and his hands trembling slightly. Mr. Poirot, this is intolerable. My wife, murdered in our own home. I demand you tell me what you're doing to find the culprit. Poirot turned, his expression serene but unyielding. Monsieur Ashby, rest assured, Hercule Poirot does not idle. But to find the truth, I must have order and method. First, I require your permission to speak with each member of this household. No one is to leave Blackthorn Hall until the police arrive, and I will need a list of all who were present this evening, including servants. Sir Reginald nodded, though his eyes were haunted. Very well. I'll have the butler, Grayson, prepare the list. But surely you don't suspect my guests. These are respectable people, friends, family. Poirot's gaze was steady. Respectability, monsieur, is a mask that many wear. I suspect everyone until the facts prove otherwise. As Sir Reginald intention to prove it. Davies grunted, unconvinced, but stepped aside as Poirot began his interviews. He called for the butler, Grayson, first. The man stood rigidly, his pale face as expressionless as ever, though a faint tremor in his hands betrayed his nerves. Monsieur Grayson, Poirot began, his voice soft but probing. You filled the decanter this afternoon. At what time precisely? At 3 o'clock, sir, Grayson replied. I always prepare the library for the evening at that hour. And you saw no one tamper with it? No one entered the library afterward? No, sir. I was in the servants' hall until dinner was announced. Poirot nodded, his eyes narrowing. And Lady Beatrice, did she often come to the library alone? Grayson hesitated, a flicker of unease crossing his face. Occasionally, sir. She liked to read in the evenings. She was fond of the library. Merci, Poirot said, dismissing him with a wave. As Grayson left, Poirot turned to Hastings. He knows more than he says, mon ami. His hesitation. It is a crack in the facade. We shall press it later. One by one, Poirot questioned the others. Julian Carver admitted to a recent argument with his aunt over a family trust, though he insisted it was minor. Dr. Marwood revealed that Lady Beatrice had consulted her about nervous complaints, but refused to elaborate, citing patient confidentiality. Major Rutherford was gruff, claiming he'd been at the dining table all evening, though his limp made his movements slow and deliberate. Miss Clara Henshaw, tearful and incoherent, swore she'd seen no one leave the dining room, though her eyes darted nervously when asked about Lady Beatrice's habits. As the interviews concluded, Poirot stood by the fire, his hands clasped behind his back. Mon cher Hastings, he said, this house is a puzzle, and each person is a piece. Already I see contradictions. The alibis. They are too neat, too perfect. Someone lies, and the truth lies hidden in the details. The earring, the window, the brandy. Morning room. A small sunlit space overlooking the gardens, his notebook open on the table before him. Captain Hastings, nursing a cup of tea, marveled at his friend's composure in the face of such a grim affair. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his pen poised above the page, "the art of detection is like the art of conversation. One must listen not only to what is said, but to what is left unsaid. Yesterday in our interviews there were silences that speak louder than words." Hastings frowned, setting his cup down. "You mean Grayson, the butler? He did seem a bit cagey when you pressed him about the decanter. Oui, but not only Grayson. Each person we spoke to revealed something. A hesitation, a glance, a choice of phrase. These are the threads from which we weave the truth. Today we shall pull at these threads and see what unravels." Poirot had requested that the household gather in the morning room for further questioning, a task Inspector Davies had grudgingly allowed, provided he could observe. The constable, still clinging to his theory of suicide, hovered at the edge of the room, his notebook open, but largely ignored. Poirot, in contrast, was all focus, his green eyes scanning the faces of the assembled group. Sir Reginald, pale and hollow-eyed. Julian Carver, fidgeting with a cigarette case. Dr. Evelyn Marwood, her expression as unreadable as ever. Major Rutherford, leaning heavily on his cane, and Miss Clara Henshaw, clutching a handkerchief as though it were a lifeline. Poirot began with Sir Reginald, his tone polite but incisive. "Monsieur Ashby, you mentioned last night that Lady Beatrice left the dining room to fetch a book. Did she say which book, or why she needed it so urgently?" Sir Reginald's brow furrowed, his hands twisting together. "She didn't say exactly. Beatrice was fond of reading, poetry mostly. She might have wanted something to soothe her nerves. She'd been distracted lately." "Distracted?" Poirot's eyebrows rose slightly. "In what way, s'il vous plaît?" "She was worried about the estate." Sir Reg. "Unusual. Her demeanor, perhaps." Julian hesitated, his fingers tightening on the cigarette case. "She seemed agitated. She didn't say much, just excused herself quickly. I thought she was tired." Poirot nodded, turning to Dr. Marwood. "Madame, you mentioned Lady Beatrice's nervous complaints. Can you elaborate without violating your professional ethics?" Dr. Marwood's lips pursed, but she spoke with measured precision. "Lady Beatrice consulted me about sleeplessness and anxiety. She felt watched, she said, as though someone was keeping tabs on her movements. I prescribed a mild sedative, but she refused to take it regularly." "Watched?" Poirot's voice was soft, almost a whisper. "By whom, did she say?" "She didn't name anyone," Dr. Marwood replied, her eyes meeting Poirot's briefly before dropping to her hands. "I assumed it was her imagination, given her stress." The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling over the group. Miss Henshaw sniffled, her handkerchief pressed to her mouth. "It's awful," she whispered. "To think someone was spying on her. And now this." Poirot's gaze shifted to her. "Mademoiselle Henshaw, you were close to Lady Beatrice, no? Did she confide in you about these fears?" Clara shook her head, her auburn curls trembling. "Not exactly. She was kind to me, but she kept to herself. I did find her pearl earring in the library a few days ago, though. She'd lost it, and I returned it to her. She seemed so grateful, but also frightened. Poirot's eyes gleamed. The earring, the same one we found last night, perhaps. Tell me, mademoiselle, where exactly did you find it? Under the sofa, Clara said, her voice barely audible. I thought she'd just dropped it while reading. Poirot made another note, then turned to Major. It's significant. Poirot's mustache twitched. Everything is significant, mon ami. The earring was found twice, once by Mademoiselle Henshaw, and once by us after the murder. Why was it lost again? And why was Lady Beatrice frightened by its return? These are not accidents. Someone in this house weaves a web of lies, and we shall trap them in it. The mist outside thickened, curling around Blackthorn Hall like a living thing. Hastings felt a growing sense of dread, but Poirot's eyes burned with determination, his mind already piecing together the puzzle that would unravel the secrets of Lady Beatrice's death. Chapter 5. The Scent of Suspicion. The mist that cloaked Blackthorn Hall had thickened by mid-morning, muffling the world outside and lending the manor an air of isolation, as though it were cut off from time itself. Inside, the atmosphere was no less stifling. The guests, confined to the house by Poirot's request and Inspector Davies' reluctant authority, moved restlessly, their polite facades fraying under the strain of suspicion. Hercule Poirot, however, remained a figure of calm precision, his small frame seated at a writing desk in the morning room, where he pored over his notes with the intensity of a scholar deciphering an ancient text. Captain Hastings stood by the window, watching the fog swirl, his mind uneasy. Poirot, Hastings said, turning. This business is getting murkier by the minute. Everyone's got a story, but they're all so vague. Do you really think you're getting anywhere with these interviews? Poirot looked up, his green eyes glinting. Mon ami, the truth is like a diamond, hidden in the rough, but revealed by careful cutting. Each vague answer, each hesitation, is a facet. We are close to a breakthrough, I assure you, but we must proceed with care. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Inspector Davies, his ruddy face creased with impatience. Mr. Poirot, I've spoken to the servants as you asked. The cook, Mrs. Hargreaves, confirms Grayson was with her until just before dessert, as he said. Hargreaves frowned, her eyes darting to the floor. It'd be about 10 minutes to 9, sir. I was preparing the pears and Grayson left to check on the dining room. He's always particular about the service. And during this time, Poirot pressed, did anyone else enter the servants' hall? Or did you hear anything unusual, perhaps from the direction of the library? The cook hesitated, her cheeks flushing. Well, sir, I did hear a door slam, somewhere down the corridor, maybe the library. But I thought nothing of it. Doors slam in old houses like this. Poirot's eyes narrowed. A slam, you say? And at what time, s'il vous plaît? Just before Grayson left, sir. Say, 8:50 or so. Merci, madame, Poirot said, dismissing her with a nod. As she left, he turned to Hastings. A door slamming at 8:50, and Lady Beatrice leaves the dining room just before 9. The timing, it is critical. We must return to the library. The library, still sealed save for Poirot's inspections, was a silent witness to the crime. The air was heavy with the lingering scent of almonds, though fainter now. Poirot moved to the side table, where the decanter of brandy stood untouched since the previous night. He examined it closely, tilting it to catch the light. Regardez, Hastings, he said, pointing to a faint smudge on the decanter's neck. A fingerprint, perhaps? Or merely a mark from handling? We shall have the police examine it, but I suspect it will tell us little. The poison, I believe, was not in the decanter, but in the tumbler itself. Hastings frowned. But how could someone poison her glass without being seen? Everyone was at dinner. Poirot's gaze drifted to the open window, now closed but still unlatched. The window, mon ami. It is the key, or perhaps the distraction. Let us consider. If the poison was placed in the tumbler before Lady Beatrice entered, the murderer needed only a moment alone in this room. But who had that moment? As they spoke, Miss Clara Henshaw appeared at the door, her face pale and her hands trembling. Henshaw, you have been most helpful. Please do not speak of this to the others. Not yet. As Clara left, Hastings turned to Poirot. What do you make of that, Poirot? An earring that's more than it seems? Sounds like something out of a novel. Précisément, Hastings, Poirot replied, his voice low. And this house, it is a novel, a dark one written in secrets. The earring is a clue, but to what? A message, a value, or something else entirely. We must find the second earring. And we must learn why Lady Beatrice feared it. Poirot moved to the sofa where Clara had found the earring days before. He knelt, his gloved fingers probing the crevices of the upholstery. After a moment he straightened, holding a small glinting object, a pearl earring, identical to the one found near the body. Voilà, Poirot said, holding it up to the light. The pair is complete. But why was this one hidden here and not with its twin? The answer, I think, lies in what Lady Beatrice knew, and what someone wished to keep hidden. Outside, the mist pressed against the windows and the clock in the hall struck 11. Hastings felt the weight of the mystery deepening, but Poirot's expression was one of quiet triumph, as though the pieces of the puzzle were beginning to align in his mind. The scent of suspicion hung heavy in Blackthorn Hall, and Poirot was determined to follow it to its source. Chapter 6. A Clue in the Crevice. The fog outside Blackthorn Hall showed no sign of lifting, its gray tendrils curling around the manor like a living thing, isolating it further from the world beyond. Inside, the morning room had become Hercule Poirot's temporary headquarters, its polished table strewn with his meticulous notes and a small velvet pouch containing the 2 pearl earrings, one found near Lady Beatrice's body, the other beneath the library sofa. Captain Hastings watched as Poirot examined the earrings under a magnifying glass, his expression one of intense concentration. The poison. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Possibly, mon ami. Though I doubt it held cyanide, it would be too dangerous to carry so close to the skin. No, this was meant to conceal something small, something valuable. A secret, perhaps, that Lady Beatrice guarded closely. Their discussion was interrupted by the arrival of Inspector Davies, who entered with a scowl. Mr. Poirot, this is getting out of hand. The coroner's on his way, but the roads are slow with this fog. I've had a word with Sir Reginald, and he's adamant no one in this house could have done it. Says it must be an outsider, someone who climbed in through that library window. Poirot raised an eyebrow. An outsider, Inspector. No, no. The window. It is a red herring, I think. The smudge on the sill, the open latch. These suggest someone wishes us to believe in an intruder. But the poison, the timing, the earrings, these are the work of someone within these walls. Davies grunted, unconvinced, but gestured toward the door. Well, you'd better see this then. One of the maids found something in the library while cleaning. Against your orders, mind you. Poirot's expression sharpened, and he followed Davies to the library, Hastings close behind. The room was as they had left it, save for a small, crumpled piece of paper now resting on the side table, placed there by a sheepish young maid named Ellen. She stood nervously, twisting her apron. "I'm sorry, sir," Ellen stammered. "I was dusting, and I found it tucked behind a book on the shelf near the window. I didn't mean to disturb anything." Poirot waved away her apology, his attention fixed on the paper. It was a torn fragment, no larger than a calling card, with a few handwritten words in a hurried scrawl. "Meet me, 8:45, library, urgent." The ink was fresh, the paper unyellowed, suggesting it had been written recently. "Interessant," Poirot murmured, turning the paper over. "No signature, but the time, 8:45. This aligns with Mrs. Hargreaves' report of a door slamming." An excuse, he dismissed Ellen and turned to Hastings and Davies. "We must now reconstruct the evening. Lady Beatrice leaves the dining room just before 9, agitated according to Monsieur Carver. A door slams at 8:50, per Mrs. Hargreaves. The note suggests a meeting at 8:45, and then the scream at 9. The poison. It acts swiftly, within minutes. The murderer therefore was in this room, or very near, at the critical moment." Davies rubbed his chin. "But the alibis, Mr. Poirot." "Everyone claims they were at the dining table, except the servants, and Grayson's covered by the cook." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Alibis, Inspector, are like shadows. They shift depending on the light. I propose we test them. Let us gather the household again, but this time we shall ask not what they did, but what they saw. The eyes, they betray more than the tongue." As they returned to the morning room, Poirot paused by the library window, his fingers brushing the smudge on the sill. "This mark," he said softly. "It is too convenient. A distraction, yes, but for whom? The murderer, or someone else?" Hastings felt a prickle of unease. "You're saying someone's playing a deeper game, Poirot? Someone other than the killer?" "Perhaps," Poirot replied, his voice low. "Or perhaps the killer is not alone in their secrets. The earrings, the note, the window, these are pieces of a puzzle, but the picture is not yet clear. We must be patient, mon ami, and let the little gray cells do their work." The clock in the hall struck noon, its chimes echoing through the silent house. Outside, the fog pressed closer, as if conspiring to keep Blackthorn Hall's secrets locked within its walls. Poirot, undaunted, prepared to tighten the net, knowing that the truth, though elusive, was beginning to emerge from the shadows. Chapter 7. The Tangled Threads. The fog outside Blackthorn Hall had settled into a dense, unyielding blanket, muffling the world beyond, and lending.
Recall the dinner last evening, from 8:30 to 9 o'clock. Who noticed Lady Beatrice leave the dining room? And what else did your eyes observe? A heavy silence followed, broken only by the faint tick of the mantel clock. Sir Reginald cleared his throat, his voice hoarse. "I told you, Poirot, Beatrice excused herself just before 9. Said she needed a book. I was focused on my conversation with Major Rutherford, didn't see much else." Rutherford nodded gruffly. "Aye, we were talking about the war. Didn't notice her slip out, but I saw young Julian fidgeting, looking toward the door.
Julian's head snapped up, his eyes flashing. What's that supposed to mean? I wasn't watching her, I was just restless. Dinner was dragging on, and I wanted a cigarette. Poirot's gaze fixed on Julian, unblinking. Monsieur Carver, you said Lady Beatrice seemed agitated when she left. Did you see anyone follow her, even briefly? Julian hesitated, his fingers tightening on his cigarette case. No. No one followed her. At least, not that I saw. Everyone was at the table. Grayson was serving the main course. Dr. Marwood spoke up, her voice cool and precise. I noticed her leave, Mr. Poirot. She was pale, clutching her shawl tightly, as if cold. I thought it odd, given the room was warm. But no one left after her, not while I was there. Miss Henshaw, her voice trembling, added, I saw her go too. She looked frightened, I thought. But I didn't see anyone else leave until the scream. Poirot made a note, his pen moving with deliberate care. Intéressant. So, Lady Beatrice leaves at approximately 8:50, agitated, perhaps frightened. No one follows, yet a door slams at 8:50, per Mrs. Hargreaves, and a note found in the library suggests a meeting at 8:45. Let us now consider the servants. Monsieur Grayson, you were in the dining room serving at this time, oui? The butler, standing rigidly by the door, nodded. Might have been imagined. Poirot, however, missed nothing. He stepped closer to Sir Reginald, his voice soft but piercing. Monsieur Ashby, you spoke of financial troubles. Did Lady Beatrice have enemies because of these? Someone who felt cheated, perhaps? Sir Reginald's face reddened. Enemies? No, of course not. The estate's troubles were private, family matters. Beatrice was loved by all who knew her. Vraiment? Poirot's eyebrow arched. Yet she felt watched, according to Dr. Marwood. And the earrings, those curious earrings with their hidden compartments, suggest she guarded a secret. A secret worth killing for, perhaps? Clara Henshaw gasped, her handkerchief pressed to her mouth. You don't think... the earrings? Could they really be why she was killed? Poirot's gaze softened, but only slightly. Mademoiselle, everything is possible until it is impossible. The earrings, the note, the poison. These are threads in a tapestry. We must follow each one. As the group dispersed, Poirot beckoned Hastings aside. Mon ami, did you notice the glance between Sir Reginald and Dr. Marwood? It was fleeting, but it spoke of shared knowledge, or shared guilt. And Grayson's alibi, so neatly corroborated by Mrs. Hargreaves. It is too perfect, no? Hastings frowned. You think they're covering for each other? But why? And what about the earrings? That hidden compartment. Could it have held something like a will, or evidence of some kind? Poirot's eyes gleamed. You begin to think like Poirot, Hastings. Yes, the earrings may have held a document, a key, or even a cipher. But why was one hidden beneath the sofa and the other near her body? Someone searched for them, perhaps, or planted them to mislead us. They returned to the library where Poirot examined the bookshelf once more. He'd Captain Hastings, who stood by the window, his face etched with unease. The discovery of the note in Lady Beatrice's handwriting. The truth lies in the vault, but trust no one, had set Poirot's mind ablaze, his green eyes gleaming with the thrill of the chase. The air was thick with anticipation, as though the house itself held its breath, waiting for the next revelation. "Mon ami," Poirot said, folding the note carefully and tucking it into his waistcoat pocket. "This vault, it is the heart of the mystery. Lady Beatrice guarded a secret, one so dangerous it cost her life. We must find this vault, and we must do so discreetly." Hastings rubbed his chin, his brow furrowed. "A vault? Could be a safe, I suppose, hidden somewhere in the house. But how do we find it without tipping off the killer? Everyone's on edge as it is." Poirot's mustache twitched with a faint smile. "Discretion, Hastings, is the ally of the detective. We shall inquire, but not directly. Come, let us speak with Sir Reginald. As master of Blackthorn Hall, he must know of any hidden places." They found Sir Reginald in his study, a dimly lit room lined with leather-bound books and heavy oak furniture. He sat at a desk, staring blankly at a ledger, his face haggard with grief and strain. When Poirot knocked softly, Sir Reginald started, his eyes narrowing. "Mr. Poirot," he said, his voice weary. "What now? Haven't you stirred up enough trouble?" Poirot inclined his head, his tone polite but firm. "Monsieur Ashby, I seek only to uncover the truth. Tell me, is there a safe or vault in this house? A place where Lady Beatrice might have kept private documents or valuables?" Sir Reginald's hands tightened on the ledger, his knuckles whitening. "A vault? There's a safe in my study, here, behind the portrait." He gestured to a large oil painting of a stern-faced ancestor. "But Beatrice rarely used it. It holds estate papers, deeds, that sort." "May I open it, Monsieur Ashby?" Sir Reginald's face paled, but he nodded. Poirot broke the seal, revealing a single sheet of paper. The letter was brief, its tone urgent. "Julian, my dear, if you read this, I am gone. The estate is in peril, and I have uncovered a betrayal that threatens us all. The proof lies in the earrings. Guard them well. Trust no one, not even those closest to you. Forgive me for the burden I place upon you. Beatrice." Hastings let out a low whistle. "Good Lord, Poirot." She knew someone was after her. But what betrayal? And why the earrings again? Poirot's expression was grave as he examined the jewelry box. Inside were several pieces of modest value, but no second pair of pearl earrings. "The earrings are not here," he murmured, "yet the note confirms their importance. We have one piece of the puzzle, but others are missing." Sir Reginald sank into his chair, his voice barely audible. "Betrayal? What could she mean? We've had our troubles, yes, but nothing to warrant this." Poirot's gaze was piercing. "Monsieur, did Lady Beatrice ever speak of a specific threat? A business deal, perhaps, or a family secret?" Sir Reginald shook his head, but his eyes flickered with unease. "She was worried about the estate's finances, as I said. We'd invested heavily in a venture with Dr. Marwood's brother, a financier. It went poorly, and Beatrice blamed herself. But betrayal?" Poirot made a note, his pen scratching softly. "Merci, monsieur. We shall keep this letter confidential for now. But I must ask you to remain silent about our discovery. The murderer, they are watching, and we must not alert them." As they left the study, Hastings leaned close. "Poirot, this is getting deeper by the minute. A betrayal tied to the earrings, a failing investment with Marwood's brother. What's the connection?" Poirot's eyes narrowed. "The connection, mon ami, is motive. Someone stood to was relentless. And yet, she felt betrayed. Did she ever confront you or your brother directly?" Dr. Marwood's lips pressed into a thin line. "She wrote to Edward, asking questions about the accounts. He sent her the ledgers, but I don't know if she found anything amiss. She never spoke of it to me." Poirot nodded, his mind clearly racing. "Merci, madame. One last question. Did you ever see Lady Beatrice's pearl earrings, the ones with the intricate clasps?" Dr. Marwood's eyes flickered, but she shook her head. "I noticed them at dinner, but I paid little attention. They were just jewelry." As they left the conservatory, Hastings whispered, "She's hiding something, Poirot. That pause when you mentioned the earrings. She knows more than she's letting on." "Oui, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice low. "The threads are tightening. The vault has revealed one secret, but others remain. We must find the proof Lady Beatrice hid, and we must do so before the murderer strikes again." The clock struck 3, its chimes echoing through the fog-bound manor. The air grew heavier, and Hastings felt the weight of unseen eyes watching their every move. Chapter 9. The Unraveling Thread. The fog that gripped Blackthorn Hall showed no sign of relenting, its gray veil pressing against the windows as though eager to conceal the manor's secrets. Inside, the atmosphere was taut, each guest moving with the cautious deliberation of those who know they are suspects in a deadly game. Hercule Poirot, however, remained a beacon of calm precision, his mind weaving through the tangled threads of clues with relentless focus. Captain Hastings followed him through the corridors, clutching the folded note from Lady Beatrice's safe. "The truth lies in the vault, but trust no one," his heart heavy with the weight of her words. "Poirot," Hastings whispered as they approached the library once more. "That letter to Julian. It's practically a confession that she expected foul play. And Dr. Marwood's brother. Do you think he's involved in this betrayal she mentioned?" Poirot's eyes gleamed, his mustache twitching slightly. "Mon ami, the letter is a cry from the grave, but it tells us only part of the story. The betrayal, the earrings, the financial venture. These are pieces of a puzzle, and Dr. Marwood's brother is a shadow in the background. We must now pull at the thread of her words and see what unravels." They entered the library, where the air still carried a faint trace of almonds, though the body of Lady Beatrice had been removed to a guest room pending the coroner's arrival. Poirot moved to the bookshelf, his gloved fingers tracing the spine of the collected poems of Tennyson, where the note had been found. "This book," he murmured. It was her refuge, but also her hiding place. We must search further. He began a meticulous inspection of the shelves, pulling out volumes and checking for hidden compartments or loose pages. Hastings, assisting, noticed a small, leather-bound journal tucked behind a row of novels. "Poirot, look at this," he said, handing it over. The journal bore Lady Beatrice's initials, and its pages were filled with her elegant handwriting, notes on the estate. Though her eyes were distant, unfocused, she looked up as Poirot and Hastings entered, her expression tightening. "Madame," Poirot began, his tone deceptively mild, "we have discovered evidence that Lady Beatrice suspected irregularities in the financial venture with your brother Edward. She wrote of missing funds and a ledger. Can you enlighten us?" Dr. Marwood's hands clenched around the journal, her knuckles whitening. "My brother is a reputable financier," she said, her voice steady but cold. "Beatrice was mistaken. She was under strain, imagining conspiracies. I told her the investment was a risk, but she insisted on pursuing it." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "And yet she wrote of a ledger, proof, perhaps, of fraud. Did she show you this ledger or speak of confronting your brother?" Dr. Marwood's eyes flickered, but she shook her head. "No. She wrote to Edward as I told you, but he sent her the accounts. If there was a ledger, I never saw it. You're chasing shadows, Mr. Poirot." "Vraiment?" Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Shadows, madame, often conceal the truth. Tell me, did you ever handle Lady Beatrice's pearl earrings? The ones with the hidden compartments?" Dr. Marwood's composure faltered, her lips parting slightly. I saw them, yes, but I never touched them. Why do you keep asking about those earrings?" Poirot did not answer, instead turning to Hastings. "Mon ami, fetch Monsieur Carver, if you please. His aunt's letter was addressed to him, and he may know more of this ledger." Hastings returned with Julian Carver, whose face was pale and drawn, his cigarette case clutched tightly in one hand. Poirot produced the letter from the safe, holding it out. "Monsieur Carver, your aunt wrote this to you, warning of a betrayal and pointing to the earrings. Did she ever speak of a ledger or of missing funds?" Julian's eyes widened as he read the letter, his hands trembling. She mentioned something about the estate's finances, yes. A few truth you may not wish to face." As Dr. Marwood departed, Hastings leaned close. "Poirot, you're pushing her hard. Do you really think she's involved, or is it her brother?" Poirot's expression was grim. "The brother. He is a shadow. But Dr. Marwood, she is here. And her reactions betray her. She knows more than she admits, but whether she is the murderer or merely a guardian of secrets, we shall see. The ledger is the key, Hastings. We must find it before the killer does." The clock struck 4, its chimes resonating through the fog-bound manor. The threads of the mystery were unraveling, but the truth remained just out of reach, hidden in the shadows of Blackthorn Hall. Chapter 10. The Trap is Set. The fog that cloaked Blackthorn Hall had grown denser still, wrapping the manor in a cocoon of gray silence that seemed to amplify the tension within. The afternoon light struggled to penetrate the mist, casting the library in a dim, ghostly glow as Hercule Poirot stood before the assembled household. Captain Hastings, positioned near the door, felt his pulse quicken, sensing that Poirot was about to tighten the net around the murderer. The guests, Sir Reginald, Julian Carver, Dr. Evelyn Marwood, Major Rutherford and Miss Clara Henshaw, sat in uneasy silence, their faces betraying a mix of fear, suspicion, and defiance. Inspector Davies leaned against the wall, his arms crossed, watching Poirot with grudging curiosity. Poirot's small, immaculate figure commanded the room, his green eyes sweeping over the group with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. In his hand he held Lady Beatrice's journal, the letter to Julian, and the pair of pearl earrings, their hidden compartments now a focal point of the mystery. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice calm but resonant. "We stand at the precipice of truth. Lady Beatrice was murdered, not by chance but by design. A design woven from greed, betrayal, and fear. Tonight, Hercule Poirot will lay a trap to opportunity to place cyanide in her glass." Julian Carver stood, his face flushed. "You can't think it's me. Aunt Beatrice trusted me. She wrote that letter to warn me. I'd never harm her." Poirot's gaze was steady. "Monsieur Carver, your passion is noted, but passion can mask guilt. You stood to gain from the estate, did you not? And you saw her leave the dining room, agitated, yet did nothing." Julian's eyes widened, but before he could protest, Major Rutherford growled, "Enough of this. You're badgering the boy, Poirot. I was at the table the whole time. My leg keeps me slow, as you know. Why not look at Grayson? He had access to the brandy." The butler, standing silently by the door, stiffened but said nothing. Poirot turned to him. "Monsieur Grayson, your alibi is corroborated by Mrs. Hargreaves, but the timing, it is too precise. You were in the dining room, yet you did not see Lady Beatrice leave. Curious, no?" Grayson's pale face remained impassive. "I was focused on my duties, sir. I saw nothing unusual." Poirot nodded, then turned to the group, his voice rising. "Let us reconstruct the evening. At 8:45, a note lures Lady Beatrice to the library. At 8:50, a door slams, per Mrs. Hargreaves. At 9, the scream. The poison, cyanide, acts within minutes. The tumbler was poisoned, not the decanter, for only Lady Beatrice died. Someone placed the poison in her glass, and someone opened the window to suggest an intruder. But who?" He paused, letting the question hang in the air. Then, with deliberate slowness, he held up the earrings. These earrings, with their hidden compartments, held something Lady Beatrice valued, perhaps proof of the fraud she uncovered. One was found near her body, the other beneath the sofa. Why? Because the murderer searched for them, but in their haste they missed one. Clara Henshaw gasped, her handkerchief pressed to her mouth. "You mean someone believes the earrings held evidence, and they will fear its discovery in the safe. They will move tonight, and we shall be waiting." Hastings felt a chill. "You're playing a risky game, Poirot. What if they don't take the bait?" "They will," Poirot said with quiet certainty. "The guilty cannot resist the lure of their own fear." The earrings, the ledger, the note, these have stirred their conscience, and they will act to protect their secret. The clock struck 6, its chimes echoing through the fog-bound manor. Dinner was a strained affair, with every glance and word heavy with suspicion. As night fell, Hastings took his place in the shadows outside the study, his heart pounding, while Poirot waited nearby, his mind alert for the faintest sound. The trap was set, and Blackthorn Hall held its breath, waiting for the murderer to step into the light. Chapter 11. The Shadow Moves. The night at Blackthorn Hall was as oppressive as the fog that clung to its walls, a darkness broken only by the faint flicker of candlelight in the corridors. Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings had taken their positions in the shadows outside Sir Reginald's study,
where the safe stood as bait for the trap Poirot had so carefully set. The house was silent, save for the occasional creak of ancient timbers and the distant howl of the wind. Hastings, crouched behind a heavy curtain, felt his nerves taut as a bowstring, his eyes straining to catch any movement in the dim hallway. "Poirot," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Are you sure this will work? What if the murderer doesn't take the bait?" Poirot, hidden in an alcove across the hall, responded in a low murmur. "Mon ami, the guilty mind is restless. They believe the safe holds evidence of their crime, perhaps the ledger Lady Beatrice mentioned, or the contents of those earrings. Fear will drive them to act. Patience, Hastings, patience." The clock in the hall struck 11, its chimes reverberating through the manor like a warning. For nearly an hour, nothing stirred. Then a faint sound, a soft tread on the polished wood. The figure turned slowly, and in the faint moonlight filtering through the window, Hastings saw the pale, angular face of Grayson, the butler. His hands were poised at the safe, a small tool glinting in one of them. His expression was one of cold defiance, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. "Mr. Poirot," Grayson said, his voice steady but strained. "This is a misunderstanding. I was merely checking the safe for Sir Reginald, ensuring its security." Poirot's mustache twitched with a sardonic smile. "Vraiment, Monsieur Grayson? At this hour, with a lockpick? No, you came to retrieve something you believe threatens you. Something tied to Lady Beatrice's murder. Speak, and perhaps the truth will lighten your burden." Grayson's composure wavered, his hands trembling slightly. I had no choice. Lady Beatrice, she was going to ruin everything. She found the ledger, the one showing the funds siphoned from the estate. I only took what was owed to me, years of service, unappreciated, underpaid. Hastings gasped. "You poisoned her? You, Grayson?" Grayson's eyes darted to the door as if calculating his escape. But Poirot stepped forward, his small frame radiating authority. "Non, monsieur, there is no escape from the truth. You wrote the note luring Lady Beatrice to the library, did you not? You placed the cyanide in her tumbler, knowing she would drink alone. And the earrings, you searched for them, fearing they held the ledger's secrets." Grayson's shoulders slumped, his voice breaking. "She suspected me. She confronted me that afternoon, said she'd found proof in Edward Marwood's accounts, proof I'd been skimming funds for years. She was going to expose me to Sir Reginald, to the police. I panicked. The cyanide was from the gardening shed, easy to obtain. I slipped it into her glass while setting out the brandy." Poirot's eyes gleamed with triumph. "And the window? The smudge on the sill?" "Was too perfect. His manner too controlled. The slammed door at 8:50, the note at 8:45. These suggested someone with intimate knowledge of the house's routines. And his hesitation when questioned about the decanter. It was the crack in his facade." The clock struck midnight, its chimes a somber knell for the end of the mystery. The fog outside began to lift, as if the truth had cleared the air. But Hastings felt a lingering unease. What about the earrings compartments? And Dr. Marwood's brother? Are there more secrets to uncover? Poirot's eyes twinkled. The earrings, I suspect, held a copy of the ledger's key page, now lost or destroyed by Grayson.
As for Edward Marwood, his role in the fraud will be investigated, but he is not our murderer. The case is solved, mon ami. But the heart, it still mourns for Lady Beatrice. As they left the study, the manor seemed quieter, its secrets laid bare. Poirot, however, remained vigilant, knowing that even in victory, the shadows of human nature could never be fully banished. Chapter 12. The Reckoning. The fog that had cloaked Blackthorn Hall for days began to thin as dawn broke, its gray veil parting to reveal a pale, cold sky. Inside the manor, the atmosphere was no less heavy, though the revelation of Grayson's guilt had brought a grim resolution to the household. Hercule Poirot sat in the morning room, his notebook closed, his gloved hands folded neatly over the silver handle of his cane. Captain Hastings, seated across from him, still felt the weight of the night's events, his mind replaying Grayson's confession, the butler's cold admission of betrayal and murder. "Poirot," Hastings said, his voice low, "you've done it again. Caught the killer in a trap of his own making. But I can't help feeling there's more to this. The earrings, the ledger. What was Lady Beatrice protecting? And why did Grayson act so alone?" Poirot's green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction, though a shadow of melancholy lingered. He began, his voice clear and measured. "The tragedy of Lady Beatrice's death is resolved, but the story is not yet complete. Monsieur Grayson, the butler, has confessed to her murder, a crime of poison, administered in the library through a tumbler laced with cyanide. But let us unravel the how and the why, for the truth is a tapestry woven from many threads." He held up the pair of pearl earrings, their hidden compartments glinting in the morning light. "These earrings were the key. Lady Beatrice, a woman of perception, discovered that funds from the estate were being siphoned, a fraud orchestrated in part by Grayson, who felt entitled to more than his wages. She documented her suspicions in her journal and confronted Grayson, who panicked. He wrote a note luring her to the library at 8:45, where he had prepared a poisoned tumbler. Julian Carver's voice broke the silence, trembling with anger. "But why the earrings? What did they hold?" Poirot's gaze softened. "Monsieur Carver, your aunt was a clever woman." The earrings' compartments likely held a copy of a ledger page, proof of the fraud. Grayson searched for them after her death, finding one near her body, but missing the other, hidden beneath the sofa. The note in the safe, addressed to you, was her insurance, a warning to protect the earrings if she met harm. Dr. Marwood's voice was sharp, cutting through the room. "And my brother Edward? You've implied he's involved, Mr. Poirot, but you have no proof." Poirot's mustache twitched. "Madam, your brother's role is not yet clear. Lady Beatrice's journal mentions discrepancies in his accounts, and her letter to you suggests she sought answers. Whether he colluded with Grayson or was merely negligent, the police will investigate. But you, madam, your hesitation when questioned about the earrings betrayed knowledge. Did you suspect your brother's involvement?" Dr. Marwood's face paled, but she held his gaze. "I suspected nothing. Beatrice was mistaken, overwrought." Tone gentle. "Mademoiselle, you played your part by revealing the earrings' significance. Your honesty helped uncover the truth." As the group absorbed his words, Inspector Davies stepped forward.
You've done fine work, Mr. Poirot. Grayson's locked up, and the coroner's report will confirm the cyanide. I'll see to it the financial records are examined. Poirot inclined his head. Merci, Inspector. But let us not forget the human cost. Lady Beatrice sought to protect her family, her home. Her courage, though it cost her life, has brought justice. The clock struck 10, its chimes a quiet farewell to the ordeal. The guests dispersed, some to mourn, others to reflect on their own secrets. Hastings followed Poirot to the hall, his mind still racing. It's over then? Grayson's the end of it? Poirot's expression was enigmatic. For now, mon ami, the murder is solved, but the ledger's full truth may yet surface. The little gray cells, they rest, but they are never idle. As they prepared to leave Blackthorn Hall, the fog lifted fully, revealing the rolling hills beyond. The manor stood silent, its secrets laid bare. But Hastings knew that Poirot's work was never truly done, for the shadows of human nature lingered even in the light of truth. Chapter 13. The Echoes of Truth. The morning sun finally broke through the remnants of the fog, casting a pale golden light over Blackthorn Hall. The manor, though still grand, seemed diminished, its elegance tarnished by the shadow of murder. Hercule Poirot stood in the morning room, his small, meticulous figure framed against the window, his hands clasped behind his back. Captain Hastings, packing their belongings for departure, watched his friend with a mix of awe and lingering unease. Grayson's confession had solved the murder, but the air still carried the weight of unresolved questions. Poirot, Hastings said, folding a shirt into his suitcase, you've caught the killer, but I can't shake the feeling there's more to this. The ledger, Dr. Marwood's brother, the earrings. What else did Lady Beatrice know? Crying. Inspector Davies stood by, ready to escort Grayson to the police station once the coroner's formalities were complete. Poirot began, his voice steady and commanding. Mesdames et messieurs, the murder of Lady Beatrice has been solved. Monsieur Grayson, driven by greed and fear, poisoned her to conceal his theft from the estate. But there is more to understand. The earrings with their hidden compartments, and the ledger she mentioned, these suggest a larger conspiracy. I ask you now, who among you knew of her suspicions beyond Grayson? A tense silence followed, broken by Julian's sharp voice. I told you, Mr. Poirot. She warned me about the estate's finances, but she didn't share details. I wish I'd pressed her, but I didn't think it was serious. Poirot's gaze shifted to Dr. Marwood. Madame, Lady Beatrice's journal mentioned E.M., your brother, Edward Marwood. She believed he was involved in the fraud. Have you anything to add? Dr. Marwood's lips tightened, but her voice remained steady. My brother is not a criminal, Mr. Poirot. The investment failed, as I said. Beatrice's suspicions were unfounded. She saw betrayal where there was only bad luck. I tried to reassure her, but she was stubborn. Poirot's mustache twitched. Vraiment? Yet her journal and letter suggest otherwise. She wrote of a ledger, proof of missing funds. If not your brother, then who else benefited from her silence? Sir Reginald stirred, his voice hoarse. Beatrice was worried about the estate, yes, but she never mentioned a ledger to me. If Grayson was stealing, he must have hidden it well. I should have paid closer attention.
Poirot nodded, his eyes narrowing. Monsieur Ashby, your grief is understandable, but your trust in Grayson was misplaced. The ledger, I believe, is still in this house. Lady Beatrice was too methodical to leave such evidence unsecured. We must search her private quarters.
Diverted, some to Grayson, but others to an account labeled E.M. The fraud was not Grayson's alone. Edward Marwood, or someone using his name, was complicit. Dr. Marwood, summoned to the room, paled as Poirot presented the ledger.
"This is impossible," she said, her voice shaking. "My brother would never. I need to see those entries."
Poirot handed her the ledger, watching her closely. As she scanned the pages, her hands trembled, and a flicker of horror crossed her face.
This isn't Edward's handwriting. Someone forged his initials to implicate him. Grayson must have done it to cover his tracks.
Poirot's eyes gleamed. Perhaps, madame, or perhaps your brother is not as innocent as you claim. The police will investigate, and the truth will emerge. For now we know Lady Beatrice died to protect this evidence, and to protect her family from ruin. As they returned to the drawing room, Poirot addressed the group one final time. The ledger confirms Grayson's theft, and it points to a broader scheme. Lady Beatrice's courage in uncovering this truth cost her life, but her legacy is justice. Let this be a lesson. Greed and betrayal cannot hide from the light of reason. The clock struck noon, its chimes a quiet reminder of the passage of time. The household dispersed, some to mourn, others to face the consequences of their secrets. Hastings felt a sense of closure, but Poirot's expression remained pensive, as if the echoes of truth still lingered in his mind. Chapter 14. The Final Pieces. The sun, now high above Blackthorn Hall, burned away the last wisps of fog, casting a clear, cold light over the manor's ivy-clad walls. Inside, the atmosphere remained heavy, the resolution of Lady Beatrice's murder tempered by the lingering questions uncovered in her ledger. Hercule Poirot stood in the library, the scene of the crime, his gloved hands clasping the ledger as he prepared to address the household one final time. Captain Hastings, standing by the window, felt a mix of relief and unease,
but he lingered, eager to hear Poirot's final summation. Poirot stepped forward, the ledger in one hand, the pearl earrings in the other. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice resonant with authority. "The murder of Lady Beatrice Ashby was a crime of greed and fear, committed by Monsieur Grayson to conceal his theft from the estate. But the ledger, hidden so cleverly in her desk, reveals a deeper truth, a fraud that extends beyond one man's actions. Let us piece together the final threads." He opened the ledger, pointing to the red-inked entries. These figures show thousands of pounds diverted from the estate, some to Grayson, but others to an account marked E.M., presumed to be Edward Marwood, Dr. Marwood's brother. Lady Beatrice suspected this fraud and hid proof in her earrings, which Grayson sought after her death. But one question remains. Was Grayson truly alone, or was another hand guiding the scheme? Dr. Marwood's voice was sharp, cutting through the room. "You cannot implicate my brother without evidence, Mr. Poirot. Those initials could be forged, as I said. Grayson acted alone." Poirot's mustache twitched with a faint smile. "Madame, Your loyalty is admirable, but the truth is not so easily dismissed. The ledger's entries are meticulous, and Lady Beatrice's journal notes her correspondence with your brother. She believed he was complicit, and her fear of betrayal drove her to hide this proof. But let us consider another possibility. Someone else in this house knew of the fraud and profited from it. Sir Reginald's head snapped up, his face paling. What are you implying, Poirot? I knew nothing of this ledger until you found it. Beatrice kept her suspicions from me. Poirot's gaze was steady. Monsieur Ashby, your ignorance is plausible, but your trust in Grayson was a weakness exploited. The ledger suggests a pattern of withdrawals authorized by someone with access to the estate's accounts. As master of Blackthorn Hall, you had such access, did you not? Dr. Marwood's composure cracked, her voice trembling. I swear I knew nothing of any fraud. Edward told me the investment was sound, and when it failed, I believed it was bad luck. If he's involved, I was blind to it. Poirot nodded, his expression enigmatic. Blindness, madame, or loyalty? The police will investigate Edward Marwood's role, but I believe Grayson acted alone in the murder, driven by fear of exposure. The earrings, with their hidden compartments, likely held a copy of the ledger's key page, which Grayson destroyed after finding one earring. The other, hidden beneath the sofa, escaped his notice. Julian Carver spoke up, his voice raw. So Aunt Beatrice died to protect the estate, to protect us. Oui, monsieur, Poirot said softly. Her courage was her undoing, but it has brought justice. The ledger will guide the police to the full extent of the fraud, and Grayson will face the consequences of his crime. The clock struck 1, its chimes a solemn marker of closure. The household dispersed, some to reflect, others to face the fallout of the revealed secrets. Hastings followed Poirot to the hall, his mind still grappling with the complexity of the case. You've tied it up neatly, Poirot, but what about Edward Marwood? Will he face justice? Poirot's eyes twinkled. The little gray cells, they have done their work here. Edward Marwood's fate lies with the police, but I suspect he will not escape scrutiny. For now, mon ami, we have brought light to Blackthorn Hall. As they prepared to leave, the manor stood silent, its secrets exposed under the clear light of day. The truth had been uncovered, but its echoes would linger in the hearts of those left behind. Chapter 15. The Quiet Departure. The sun hung high over Blackthorn Hall, its rays piercing the last vestiges of the fog that had shrouded the manor for days. The estate, though still grand, seemed to exhale a sigh of relief, as if the resolution of Lady Beatrice's murder had lifted a weight from its ancient stones. Hercule Poirot stood in the entrance face. No, Hastings. The wheels of fate were turning before we arrived. Lady Beatrice knew the danger, yet she chose to confront it. Her legacy is the justice we have secured. The household assembled one final time, their faces a tapestry of grief and gratitude. Sir Reginald stepped forward, his voice hoarse but sincere. Mr. Poirot, Captain Hastings, words cannot express my gratitude. You've brought clarity to this nightmare, though it cost me dearly to see the truth. Poirot inclined his head, his mustache twitching slightly. Monsieur Ashby, the truth is a mirror. It reflects both light and shadow. Your wife's courage has saved your estate from further ruin. Honor her memory by guarding it well. Julian Carver, his eyes still red from grief, clasped Poirot's hand. I wish I'd understood her warnings sooner. Those earrings, I'll keep them safe as she asked, in her memory. Poirot's gaze was kind but piercing. Monsieur Carver, the earrings are a reminder of her wisdom. Let them guide you to protect what she loved. Dr. Evelyn Marwood stood apart, her composure intact but her expression strained. Mr. Poirot, she said, her voice steady. I've wired my brother to cooperate with the police. If he's guilty, I'll face that truth. Thank you for your clarity. Poirot nodded, his tone gentle but firm. Madame, the truth is a burden, but it frees us. Your brother's role, whether negligence or malice, will be uncovered. Be prepared. Major Rutherford, leaning on his cane, offered a gruff nod. You're a sharp one, Poirot. Didn't think much of you at first, but you've got a mind like a steel trap. Good work. Miss Clara Henshaw, her tears dried, managed a small smile. Lady Beatrice would be grateful, Mr. Poirot. You've given her justice. Poirot's smile was warm. Mademoiselle, justice is the least we owe her. Live kindly, as she did. Inspector Davies approached, his skepticism replaced by human weakness. Yet, there is always hope in truth. The car rolled down the drive, leaving Blackthorn Hall behind. The clock in the hall struck 2, its chimes fading into the distance as Poirot and Hastings departed, their mission complete. The manor stood silent, its wounds exposed, but its spirit enduring, a testament to the power of reason and the enduring quest for justice.